Greetings, salutations, film fans. Welcome to AMC Movie Talk. Movie Talk for movie fans. This is the daily show that keeps you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and giving you insight into what it all means. But this week we've been doing something a little bit special. This week we've been counting down basically the top films of the year. A couple days ago we did our top 5 comedies of the year. Yesterday we did our top 5 genre films. That's comic book, science fiction, and fantasy. Kind of rolled that all up into one. You'll see links in the notes below that will let you see those videos. But today, our last show of 2012, today's the big one. We are counting down for you the top 10 films of the year. Now, before I get to the list, let me emphasize something here. All film is subjective. You can have a piece of art hanging on the wall, have 10 people standing around and looking at it, and they can all see 10 different things. And that's the most beautiful thing about movies. So your list is not necessarily going to look like my list, and that doesn't mean that either you or I have bad movie tastes. It's just our subjective experience. Now, with that also being said, let me point this out. I'm not the type of person who believes that for a movie to be considered a great movie, it has to be a 17th century period coming-of-age piece about a young woman in an abusive marriage who has to overcome her substance abuse addictions and her newfound attraction to other women to be considered a great piece of filmmaking. I don't believe in those formulas. I believe that movies, to be great, have to do 3 things: make you think, make you feel, and make you experience. And all 10 films on my list are films that either really excelled in 1, 2, or 3 of those areas, I believe, above others. So with all that being said, let's jump in to the top 10 films of 2012. Starting at number 10, and one I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for, but Wreckit-Ralph. Look, if you look at what I said makes a great film, films that make you think, feel, or experience, maybe Wreck-It-Ralph didn't make you think a lot, but man, it made me feel. I thought the characters were extremely emotionally satisfying, and it made the experience. There was so much nostalgia and so much fun. It's a wonderfully done film, not just a great animated film, a great film. At number 9, Ted. It made the number 1 spot on our comedies of the year list. I still believe it's the number 1 comedy of the year. I didn't think this film was going to be any good, but from start to finish, the experience I had watching this movie was pure, unstopping laughter right from the get-go. It shocked me. It was exhilaratingly funny. I just absolutely love this movie, and for that reason, I put Ted at the number 9 spot. At number 8, the Steven Spielberg film, the highly anticipated Lincoln, which I just loved. And given one of the best male performances of the year by Daniel Day-Lewis in the lead role, this is a wonderfully done film. A film that very easily could have slid into schlock and been really overly cheesy and things like that. And maybe there's some scenes of that, but overall this is a solid film. A film that makes you look at history a little bit differently. A movie that makes you think and makes you feel. This is just a great film. I have Lincoln at number 8. At number 7, our return to Middle-earth with The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. This movie just did for me something I didn't think it could do. The Hobbit is one of the very first books I read as a kid, and this movie instantly teleported me into that world. I didn't feel like I was just watching Middle-earth. I felt like I was inhabiting Middle-earth. I thought the action was terrific. I thought the pace of the film was beautifully brisk, and I just felt like the 2 hours and 47 minutes, or the 3 hours, whatever you want to call it, runtime, just absolutely flew by. I cannot wait for next year for the next installment of this franchise. At number 6, the science fiction film Looper. This is a smart, well-paced, beautifully acted, very imaginative and very creative and very original time travel film. Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the same character from different eras. I just thought this was so smart of a film. I was engaged from the beginning. It was exciting right up to the end. And so for that, Looper comes in at number 6. At number 5, I've been saying it for a long time now, Ben Affleck is one of the best new directors in Hollywood, if not the best new director in Hollywood, with Argo. Look, when we all heard about Argo, we thought the premise sounded pretty dumb, but what you ended up getting is one of the absolute best films of the year. And I believe, finally, Ben Affleck's first Oscar nomination for Best Director. One of the great things he does in this film is that he doesn't feel the need in Argo, and I told him this, to create tension. He lets tension, the natural tension of the story and the narrative, bubble up on its own. I was sitting in my seat grasping the arms on the chair, and I realized, there are no big gunfights in this movie. There are no big chase scenes. He didn't have to create artificial intensity, artificial excitement, artificial tension. He just let it naturally seep through the narrative. Brilliant job by Affleck. Wonderful movie. Argo, number 5. I expect it to be nominated for Best Picture. At number 4, what I contend to be the very best Quentin Tarantino movie he's ever done, Django Unchained. Look, I've said this for a long time, at least since I saw Django. Quentin Tarantino is a director who, when you look at his films throughout history, his films have certain weaknesses, but they've always, he said this himself. Him and Eli Roth were talking about this once, and they pointed out that Quentin Tarantino's movies are just cool. I believe they use the term uber coolness to his movies. And that's kind of what has buoyed his movies to these cult classic statuses that they have, because they are so cool and the dialogue is so good. But if you really want to look at them critically, there are certain things he could do better. But as you've seen Quentin Tarantino's career progress, he's gotten better and better and better and better in all those areas. No longer does he just write great dialogue for characters, he writes great characters. Not only now does he just have random, pretty cool scenes of people sitting around talking about random things, now he has scenes of people sitting around talking, but that actually push the narrative. I just think he's gotten extraordinary as a director. Yeah, I didn't like Death Proof very much. I thought that film was terrible. But when you look at his last couple of outings, including Inglourious Bastards, you just see Tarantino getting better and better and better, and I can't wait to see what he does next. And for that, Django Unchained comes in at number 4. At number 3, the greatest comic book movie ever made, The Avengers. I've said this before and I will say it again. The Avengers is the single most fun experience I have ever had at a movie. I was really nervous when they said that Joss Whedon was going to be directing. Look, we all sit back now in hindsight and say, what a brilliant decision. But at the time, I thought maybe Jon Favreau should have directed it. I thought maybe Kenneth Branagh should have directed it. There were a couple other people I thought who should have directed Avengers other than Joss Whedon, even though I'm a Whedon fan. But you can't exaggerate the masterpiece of a genre film that he created. Is just an amazing experience, the most fun I've ever had at a movie theater. And for that, Avengers comes in at number 3. At number 2, Catherine Bigelow's Zero Dark 30. I was kind of afraid that we were just going to see Hurt Locker Part 2. And certainly there's an argument to be made that there's a kind of tone similarity, absolutely, between Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. But this is a movie that absolutely makes you think. When you look at the history, there's stuff in this movie that I had no idea about. And I'm not even talking about the factual stuff that's in dispute. I'm talking about the factual stuff that's not in dispute, that I found incredibly riveting. The performances, Jessica Chastain, just hand her the Best Actress of the Year Oscar right now. She's going to take that, no problem. But everybody, the whole ensemble was very solid. The pacing of the film was great. The structure of the film was great. And the ending was amazingly satisfying. And they didn't give into the temptation of over-glorifying or making a spectacle out of what happened. They just dredged along at a very, purposeful pace to get to where they were going. Beautifully done. I felt like my guts were being ripped out. There was so much tension in this film. So good. And for that reason, I give Zero Dark 30 the number 2 spot on my top 10 films of the year. And now, number 1. I didn't think it would be. I was hoping it would be, but I didn't think it would. Tom Hooper's Les Miserables. I cannot tell you how much I love this film. There are some critics out there right now who I believe are either blind, deaf, or dumb, or all three. I'm being facetious. Who say they don't even like this film, and that is completely, I can't understand what planet they're living on. From the moment this movie starts, I am overwhelmed by the cinematography of it, the shot selection of Tom Hooper, the performances given by guys like Russell Crowe and by guys like Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway, who is an absolute lock to win Best Supporting Actress this year. There's incredibly courageous filmmaking in this. And what I mean by that is there are shots you would never consider as a filmmaker. Putting a person in frame and then just holding that shot for 2.5 minutes as that person talks or sings and not moving the camera, not cutting editing. but Tom Hooper does, and he allows us to just, as an audience, to bathe in these beautifully constructed shots and to just experience these waves of this incredible performance coming at us. It was very, very brave, super courageous as a filmmaker to do stuff like that. This is an impossible undertaking, taking a story like Les Miserables, a musical. There's no dialogue, it's all singing. How can you make this an engaging, emotionally uplifting and terrifying, and just toy with your emotions and tear you to 1,000 pieces and put you back together again and tear you apart again? I don't know how you could even consider making a film like this, but they did, and the results were beautiful. My number one film of 2012 is Les Miserables. To recap, at number 10, Wreckit-Ralph. At number 9, Ted. At number 8, Lincoln. Number 7, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. Number 6, Looper. Number 5, Argo. Number 4, Django Unchained. Number 3, The Avengers. Number 2, Zero Dark 30. And number 1, Les Miserables. Now listen, before we close off this year and look forward to 2013, I also just want to throw in a couple of honorable mentions that didn't make this list. Look, we always complain about, this was a terrible year for film. I do that too. And then I'm putting my top 10 list together last week, and I'm realizing, man, there were a lot of films I loved this year, including a bunch that I couldn't get into my top 10. So some honorable mentions here in no particular order. Skyfall, James Bond returns to greatness after a slight hiccup with Quantum of Solace. Chronicle, my biggest surprise film of the year. Perks of Being a Wallflower, just a gem of a little movie. Liam Neeson's The Grey. I can't believe that film's not in my top 10. Silver Linings Playbook. Robert De Niro actually acts again, as Dennis pointed out to me once before. And the beautifully, beautifully done Life of Pi. Amazing films that just didn't get into the top 10. So folks, there you have it. There's a top 10 for 2012. But the important thing now is for you to jump into the comments section and tell us what your top 10 films are. What films are on my list that you think I'm crazy for putting there? What films did I leave off my list that you think should really actually be in there? Jump in, join the discussion, and let's talk about it. And folks, thank you so much for joining us, not just today, but for all of 2012. And we look forward to an even better year in film in 2013. There's a lot of great films coming up. And probably early in the new year in January, we'll do a video for our most anticipated films of 2013. Once again, thanks for joining us. My name's John Campea for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.